the hardest thing you ever had to explain to your parents? Story 1 Pro Tip: don't ask your parents for Cards Against Humanity for Christmas. It's likely they will want to play it with you, on Christmas night, and you'll find yourself explaining to your mom, in front of your entire family, what is. Edit this blew up. In retrospect, I don't know what was more disturbing, that I had to explain to my mom, or that I didn't need to explain it to Dad. Story 2 I had to try to explain to my mother that forgiveness is not the same thing as pretending she was the best mother ever, and that healing is not the same thing as forgetting all the ways she harmed me. It doesn't matter that she was young when she had me, or that she was a broke single parent knowingly marrying a pedophile and letting him abuse me for 10 years so she could have material comfort was still a shitty thing to do. I will have to live with that for the rest of my life, and I will never get over it as she defines it. That she still would rather I keep toxic secrets than pierce her delusion of being blameless is the reason I can't have any adult relationship with her. Story 3 that I am atheist. This doesn't mean that I am a Satanist. This doesn't mean that I hate God. This doesn't mean that I am a know-it-all who thinks that I am above God. No, it just means that I do not believe in the religion you have tried to teach me. I will still respect your desire to pray before each meal, before we go on trips, and still be respectful of you being grateful to God whenever something good happens in either of our lives. I just don't believe in God or any other God. It's that simple. It's not a phase. It's my choice, and I wish you could respect it as much as I respect your choice to be religious. Story 4 that I don't want parenting advice from my mom. She wasn't a good parent, and out of 3 kids, I'm the only one who isn't. And that's through sheer willpower. She's always trying to give me advice, but she still enables my brother and sister to be awful, so I can't take her seriously. Story 5 around this time last year, I met a guy at a holiday party. Seemed normal. We made loose plans to hang out after the holidays since we were both going out of town to see family. Christmas morning, I'm showing my parents something on my phone when I get a text. I absent-mindedly open it while my parents are still looking over my shoulder at my screen. Dude sent me a pic with a Merry Christmas note. I spent Christmas morning explaining pics to my parents over breakfast, while my siblings acted like this was the first they'd ever heard of the concept and completely hung me out to dry. Story 6 No, Dad, the one time I went on Twitter on your computer did not cause the entire system to crash. It's probably all the strange websites and downloads in your web history. Story 7 Because I'm working from home does not mean you can call me 15 times. You won't call me at work ever, even when it is an emergency. Just because I'm in my home doesn't mean I'm not working. Story 8 To my dad, mostly the you read on Facebook is 999 BS. No, there isn't a magical fruit that cures everything. Most of the you read is fake news. You're telling me people would just make a website for fake news. Oh stop, you don't know what you're saying. Yes, Dad, there's tons of people making fake news sites just to with you. Story 9 That my so and I couldn't spend every Christmas with them because we need to alternate yearly family celebrations so we can spend equal time with both. They understand that my SO's family lives far away and that we need to make choices. But they're obviously heartbroken, and tell us that Christmas just isn't a happy time for them any longer without us. Story 10 Explaining to my mother how to use her smartphone. I was running out of patience until she looked at me and said I taught you how to hold a spoon, and how to use the potty so. Story 11 The fact that I was struggling hard with depression and that I didn't have the force to pursue my studies at the time. They understood pretty well and were really supportive, but it took me a lot of time to gather the courage to talk about it. Short edit Thank you all for your heartwarming comments. I sincerely hope that everyone going through rough times at the moment will be able to find someone they love supporting and helping them. It's definitely one of the best feelings in the world. Story 12 The connection to the Wi-Fi doesn't equal internet. Very often when Skype calls drop, the answer is it can't be us. We have all 3 bars on the Wi-Fi. I guess I tell them every other month that they could have full Wi-Fi signal and still have no internet. To be fair, like 99.98356 of the time 37,564 of people use interchangeably. Story 13 What it is. There's a waterfall in northern Arkansas called the, pretty much a small stream that goes through a rock instead of over it. It's pretty neat. We were staying in a cabin near there a few years back for Christmas, which led to this situation. Several of us were sitting around a table playing card games when my mother walked up and excitedly said who wants to go to the, my brother, my wife, and I all started laughing our asses off, which just made my mother very confused. Bonus points also had to explain it to my Catholic grandmother. I still haven't found success with explaining this. I love my parents, but I won't add them on social media. It's not because I'm embarrassed of what's on it, because that age has long passed. I just want a place, no matter how stupidly insignificant, that doesn't have them in it. I haven't added any relatives either. They're the kind of family-oriented people who are used to being tightly intertwined with the lives of their entire family. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not that same kind of person. It's hard explaining this concept, because to family people like them my vehement refusal to add them to Facebook or whatever comes off as spiteful. Edit Y'all have some up family members if this is really as big a deal as you make it out to be. My parents don't really cry about it. They just casually mention feeling confused as to why I won't add them once in a while. And even then, as I said, it's not because I don't want them to see what I post. At this point it's more a matter of principle than anything else. Story 14 It shouldn't have been a surprise to them, but I have never wanted to change my name at marriage. Back when I was single, I mentioned it offhand to my mom. She said that I wouldn't be able to find a guy who wouldn't want me to change my name, so I probably would never get married. This year, lo and behold, I got married to my husband who couldn't care less what my name is. After the wedding, my parents asked how they should address correspondence to us. I let them know we each kept our respective names. My dad says, "I bet Mr. Murder Kitty is pretty upset about that." Huh, I said no, he said, "I bet he is." They can't wrap their minds around this. Story 15: How gay relationships work. My parents were under the impression there is always a bride and groom in a wedding. They never thought people existed or any of that jazz. Story 16: Mom, this is awkward I know, but I'm going to be friendly with you, talk to you, all that, but after tonight, things need to be like they were before. Some background: for over a year and a half I haven't spoken to my mother. She's a heroin addict and basically she did one too many shitty things and I decided to cut contact once and for all. But the other weekend, it was my nan's 70th birthday. This woman took me in and saved me from a terrible life. All her adult children wanted to get together for a meal at a restaurant, but they invited my sister and I because although we're her grandkids, we're more like her actual children. I wasn't going to go because they'd already invited my mum, which I was cool with. I have no problem with the rest of my family talking to her as long as they respect that I do not wish to. But this night they all asked me to put our personal feelings aside for my nan's sake. I agreed eventually. She showed up to the restaurant late, and I chose to greet her because I needed it to be clear that this wasn't her in with me. I was not breaking the silence. It was hard because I don't hate her, she makes me sad. I felt like I was kicking a sick dog. I didn't want to hurt her but I know it did, but that couldn't be helped. If I let her back in, I'm the one who will get hurt, even if it's accidental. I refused to give her the chance. She tried to keep hidden but she went into the bathroom to cry. I felt horrible. Story 17: That they will outlive their daughter-in-law. My wife has a terminal illness called cystic fibrosis. There is no cure, and she has been progressively getting worse each year. We made the conscious decision to have children, which only compounded her multitude of health issues. I'm happy we have been able to start a family of our own, but I have absolutely no clue how I will be able to handle explaining to my children where their mama is. Thank you everyone for the outpour of support. I am managing okay. I do take an antidepressant and I have spoken to my wife about the possibility of grief counseling. For those who PM'd me offering financial support, while I appreciate the offer, please donate to the CF Foundation here. Story 18: That I was pregnant out of wedlock. I was visiting home for the weekend and our Sunday ritual was church, lunch, then I drive back to college. Well, this particular Sunday, my water broke when I sat down in the car to go to church. I sat through the ride in church in silence until after Mass when my dad asked me where I wanted to eat. It went like this: "Dad, where do you want to eat?" Me, "Well, I have something that I need to tell you. I'm pregnant." Dad, "What?" Punches steering wheel and cusses in another language. "When are you due?" Me, "Well, that's the thing. I'm not due till the end of the month, but my water broke this morning." That was the longest day of my life. But 9 hours later I had a healthy and beautiful 7 pounds baby girl. 14 years later, she's almost taller than me, relatively smart, and accomplished as in basketball and golf. My parents have come to terms with it all, though my mother still likes to throw it all back in my face whenever it behooves her. Yay for Filipino mothers that sure know how to hold a grudge. Story 19: I live in Washington, but I'm from the Midwest and my parents still live there. They came out to visit me and could not believe that there were cannabis stores. They kept asking why it hasn't been shut down. Explaining that pot is legal was weird and they kept saying, "It's so weird to even think that it's legal." Totally different times. Story 20: That me buying their home so they can get a different home in 2007 is a bad idea. Seriously, it's a bad idea since I don't want it or need it. I lived in an apartment at the time, then moved into my now wife's home who also bought in 2007. Oh, you guarantee to back me up financially if this thing goes down like a Led Zeppelin? I guess we can try this. But I still think it's a bad idea and I'm being selfish for not wanting to buy the home I grew up in, whatever. But okay, oh, the housing market just crashed and I'm stuck renting this place out now until it's above water. Story 21: Steps to install TeamViewer on call, so that I can have a video call with them. Mom, press the lower left corner. Good, now what do you see? Sir Artemino, do you see Chrome? Silu, Mom, not calendar, Chrome, hope I should never do that again. Story 22: That N64 didn't have any RPGs so I wanted a PlayStation. My mom spent an hour explaining to me that this is how corporations trick their consumers into wanting to buy things, that I shouldn't let myself be the latest victim to their schemes. This was by far the most frustrating conversation I've ever had with them, as there was no way of explaining to them how Final Fantasy and Mario Kart were not the same thing because hey, they're both video games, right? Story 23: I had to walk my 75-year-old mother through the basics of email. By phone, we mainly got there, but I lost some hair by the time it was over. The other thing was inflation. She never got it. Never understood why 100K left in a bank account for 20 years at low interest wasn't the same 100K that she put in. Bless her, Dad left her 2 pensions and SS, and she never needed to know. Story 24: That I'd gotten an abortion, and I had to tell them as they were rushing me to the hospital. I still haven't told them the real reason, though. I'll let them think it was just an accident. Story 25: I'm sure lots of people will be saying this, but coming out to my mom, unfortunately it was kind of forced out of me, in the middle of Panera Bread. Haha. She said I didn't see myself, asked me if I was pregnant, if I had an abortion, and then jokingly asked if I was gay. Imagine the horror that ensued after a mother thought she was having the pregnancy talk with her daughter, and then found out was gay, edit word. Story 26: Dad does not believe global warming can be attributed to humanity. He said that volcanoes contribute 99 of CO2 compared to cars. I research and respond that it's actually 1 volcanoes, 99 cars. He asked if I really believed my resource. So far I've gotten him from, the earth will repair itself, to there's no point, China is the one polluter. Small steps. Story 27. Not that I was pregnant. Well, that was hard. The hardest came after that discussion ended and I had to tell my parents I lost my mom's diamond earring. Pregnancy was my problem. My mom's earring was literally money down the drain. They handled it surprisingly well, which made me cry more. However, I found the earring a couple days later in my room. Story 28. That I was abusing drugs. They had known that I smoked pot, but they didn't know I was doing heavier stuff. I had nearly overdosed a few days prior and never told them. Soon after, I found my peace with God, and I have been clean almost 3 years. Story 29. That I've been depressed for so long that I can't remember what being happy and relaxed feels like. It's a miracle if I get through a day without crying, and my biggest wish is to die in my sleep. This was a couple years ago and things aren't much better. Story 30. That, as a full-blown adult, you cannot tell me what to do. I will listen to your advice as my elder, but ultimately I will make my own decision. I will always come to you when I need advice, but what I need is your opinion, not what I'm doing wrong. Story 31. Dad, it took no less than 5 seconds to see the antivirus company you keep giving your credit card to is fake, and they're selling your CC number every single time. Story 32. That my sexuality isn't a thing for them to make fun of and use as a quick laugh at family parties and get-togethers. That my sexuality isn't something that they can blurt out and tell the entire world, especially when I've told them countless times not to. That my sexuality doesn't mean that someone hurt me when I was younger and put me off girls. That my sexuality doesn't mean that the devil has possessed me or that the internet is evil and has brainwashed me. That my sexuality doesn't mean I'm broken. Story 33. That I'm fully capable of living my life without my mother's guidance every step of the way. I'm her youngest child and she subconsciously doesn't want to let go of her baby. Story 34. That the friend I roomed with after moving out was not interested in the girl my mom was convinced was a perfect match for him, because he already had a boyfriend, and no, my having a gay roommate does not mean that I'm also gay. Story 35. My cousin showed up to a family event with her female partner. My dad sidled over to me, asked me, "So what is going on here?" In that we're both straight, so you'll totally commiserate with me over this weird gayness thing, right? I looked him in the eye, said, "Well, when a woman love each other very much." He almost literally stomped off in a huff. Story 36. Well, gonna take this in a different direction than most of the thread, but how truly thankful I am for them and the upbringing they gave me. I see friends up constantly due to lack of parenting or trying to get back at a parent. I've never gotten anything but love and support from them. They were stern when they needed to be, but always for good reason, and they made sure that I knew they loved me. They gave me responsibility throughout my life and made me work for everything I wanted, even though it probably would have been easier for them just to buy it and save themselves my probably annoying 12-year-old chatter. A year ago, the father almost died seriously cancer, and they're still helping me out with college, even through the medical bills, and my dad even apologizes for being an inconvenience. They've helped me through depression and helped and encouraged me to find a purpose in life, rather than tell me to just get over it or throw me at a doctor's office. I know for sure I wasn't an easy kid to raise. I went from this actually happened BTW, literally running on and over desks in my elementary school library, to being on track to finishing a computer science degree a year early and having a second interview for a stellar internship this summer. It's like, what did I do to deserve anything like this? I dunno, man. I just really don't know how to show them how thankful I am and how lucky I know I am. Story 37. What Dungeons and Dragons is. Mainly because they're from a foreign country and background where tabletop games weren't popular, the idea of a storytelling game for them is impossible to explain without seeming weird. So I just tell them I go play a big board game at a friend's house that takes 5 to 6 hours at a time, and the rules are pretty complicated. Story 38. My mom cannot comprehend that she says things that are very insulting and hurtful, and that even if she didn't mean for them to be insulting and hurtful, she should still apologize if she hurt someone. Story 39. During the Tea Party campaigns in 2009, when Tea Partiers were mailing tea bags to their congresspeople and calling it teabagging, Rachel Maddow made a bunch of jokes about teabagging on her show. My 74-year-old grandmother was confused by them, as she didn't understand that the term had a double meaning. I then had to explain to her what the other sort of teabagging involved. It was the most awkward conversation I had had in my life up to that point. Story 40. That I was only 19 and nowhere near ready to raise a child, so I was going to place my son with a family that could raise him, and give him all the opportunities he would have missed out on if he was raised by me. And no, Dad, you and Alicia can't raise him either because you're a shitty parent and I want only the best for my child, which means I don't want my kid raised by a beer bottle. Sorry, it's been 3 weeks since placement, feels like a lot longer though, and my parents still aren't talking to me, though it's not like they were talking to me before I told them about getting pregnant, so I'm not too surprised. Part of me wishes they could respect my decision to ensure Lincoln has the best possible life, but honestly, I'd be shocked if they did. That's the kind of people they are. Story 41. That I got terminal cancer out of nowhere and have only little time left. Yeah, that is the hardest. Guy who lived healthy life and tried to be nice to everyone and have wife and 3-year-old son, FML. Story 42. Explaining that I am a completely different person from when I was 12 has been the hardest thing to get through to my mom. I was an awkward kid who I guess didn't attract a lot of male attention. But since growing up, I've gotten tons of attention even with my parents right in front of me. She thinks I'm single because I don't know how to attract men or talk to them. She doesn't know I'm sleeping with someone now, or that flirting attracting is probably the most natural thing to me. I can't show that side to my parents, obviously, or explain the extent of my dating life or that I'm often not without options. I just don't want to marry an abuser like my parents both did to each other, so I'm extra careful for that reason. I don't like to take her advice on people for that reason too. I am not the same person as her, nor will I tolerate the same things. Explaining that I'm not afraid to take risks besides love has been the hardest thing to explain to my dad. He's the opposite of a risk taker, yet in love, he took a huge risk that I wouldn't personally, and I've always had to remind him that he and I aren't the same person. I have no issues with taking a leap of faith and have done it so many times so far. I know he has too, but he seems to forget that we aren't the same person sometimes. My parents both project their issues on me a lot, and I always have to remind them that I am an individual, and I'm not them. Story 43. I've noticed in this thread that there's a lot of people who have parents who can't understand that their children may indeed grow up to have different opinions, religious beliefs, political views than them. Honest question: do people think that having children means you get a carbon copy of yourself? Is it really that unimaginable that this separate human being may develop their own ideas and have different experiences that shape them, apart from you? Story 44. My mom never touched a computer in her life. I am in Canada and she's in India. It took 2 hours to explain her to switch on a computer, enter an URL in the browser so it connects to the internet. I enabled LastPass autofill and auto login, and then I have TeamViewer on auto starts, so I remote to that computer and establish a video call. It took a great patience to get it working, but we both finally managed to go on the video call. It was really hard explaining her minute details or few things that can't be explained. I then realized how many small details I know about a computer that I used to use 4 years ago. Story 45. Having to explain to my mom in detail why it was her fault that I wasn't talking to her all that much anymore, and that if she didn't fix her then she wouldn't be a part of my son's life. Amazingly, she fixed her. Story 46. The project I could really use their help with. Friends and I are doing Steampunk Saints Row because it's funny. My folks do woodworking, and I need help building a terrifying steampunk, super uncomfortable, but hey, they agreed. I can't even say that I have explained it, but hardest thing I've tried to explain, that I'm no longer Mormon, that I'm not just taking a break to get my head right, and that I have no intention to return to the fold. Story 47. Pretty much any time I have to explain something to my mom over the phone, usually about school, she misunderstands the situation. I don't know if it's my fault, but if after 10 times I tell her that I'm taking a course online in a program that is in no way affiliated with my school whatsoever, she keeps telling me things such as she is going to call my school to demand a refund because we already paid for these courses. I just stop trying. Best part is the week after when the subject is brought up again, and she gets mad at me because she didn't know that the course I was taking was online. Story 48. That growing up with parents who constantly fought was terrifying for me and my brother, and that it is unacceptable for that behavior to occur in front of their grandchild now. Story 49. That you can't just get into public housing. That waiting lists are a real thing, and no, I can't just sit in a chair in the office till they give me a house. Currently homeless, and they offer no help even though my dad has a 4-bedroom house and is only using 1 bedroom. Story 50. That I had depression. They could understand the concept well enough. My mum has clinical depression. I think that's why it was so hard. She knew how horrible it was, and it devastated her to know I felt so hopeless and worthless. Story 51. That I was dating a 31-year-old when I was 20. Dad was cool with it. He said as long as the guy was an A to me and that I was happy, then he was okay with it. Mom, on the other hand, she never got to meet the guy in the few months we dated. She threatened to ask him, "What the are you doing with a 20-year-old?" On the day he was picking me up at my house for a company event I was going to with him, he picked me up at my sister's house instead. Oh. Story 52. The fact that I had faked being in school for 2-ish years and indeed wasn't going to graduate college tomorrow after 6 years. And I guess I have a pretty serious anxiety procrastination complex. I still have no idea how to get over this one. I destroyed and soiled many relationships with this one. Story 53. Everything, which is part of the reason I don't talk to my mother anymore. I can have a conversation with my stepfather. I can explain something like politics or finances to him so that he gets the gist of it. We can even have disagreements about issues, but he'll still be able to see my side of it. My mother, nothing. She has been unwilling and outright hostile to the idea of learning for the past 20 years now. She's working in a nursing home kitchen right now and hating every second of it because she refused to learn Microsoft Office and basic computer skills when she had the chance. I even offered to pay for adult ed classes and she still refused. And if she had her way, her personal opinions would be law, and am a horrible person for defying her wishes. Story 54. I had to call my mom from juvie when I was a freshman in high school. I got busted skipping class with some friends, and when they looked through my backpack, found some alcohol, half-pint or 2 of vodka, I think, weed, shrooms and painkillers. Up until that point my mom thought I was this sweet innocent little boy, and I had to tell her I was arrested for skipping school and drug possession. That was not fun, like at all, especially when I had to go to drug court. My mom was mad, but not scream at me mad, more like, "I'm just really disappointed in you kinda mad." That sucked the most. I kinda felt like Bart did in that Simpsons Christmas episode where he's caught shoplifting. I just wanted my mom to yell at me and get it over with. Instead, she'd talk to me but almost like we were just acquaintances and not family. Took a bit of time before things got back to normal. Story 55 that I'm unable to have children and that grandbabies from me is possibly impossible. It broke my mom's heart. It was the first time I've ever seen her bawl, man. That was rough. Story 56 having to tell my mom that I had overdosed when I was 19. Up until then, she knew I had been diagnosed with depression but had no idea how bad it was. I had overdosed several times before this and have done several times since. A friend persuaded me to tell her. I did because at that point I had just been transferred from ICU to a cardiac ward because my ECGs weren't normal. She still thinks it was the only time I've done it. I also was wearing a hospital gown so she saw all the cuts and scars on my arms. Cue all the questions about why. I didn't tell her about the fact that my upbringing and assault by a family member were the reasons. It would have no benefit. So she thinks my mental illness is just random. I chose this time to tell her that I smoke as well. She thinks it's an absolutely disgusting habit, and I figured she couldn't get mad at me whilst I was in hospital. Story 57 me and a friend, both 13 years old boys, were caught naked with erections in the bedroom. I also had a hickey on my neck. My response: we were just playing. Story 58 my mother had most of her stomach removed due to cancer at the end of June in 1997. She was required to go to an oncologist appointment about 30 days later, when she was in a nursing home. I took her to the appointment, which was difficult because by that time she was unable to walk, was diapered, and had to eat through a tube in her nose and down her throat, and the appointment was an hour away from the nursing home. The three of us, my mom, my dad, and I, were sitting in the doctor's office waiting for her to come in and examine mom. When the doctor came in, she motioned me to follow her into her office and didn't even speak to my mom, let alone examine her. When the two of us were in the oncologist's office, she said that mom was well past any help. Chemo strong enough to kill the cancer would be immediately fatal to mom as well, and anything weaker would not touch the cancer but make her sick enough to wish she was dead. I, of course, broke down. I had to compose myself, walk back into that room and collect my mom and dad, and get us back home. The light went out of my mom's eyes that day and she gave up. My dad took it very hard as well. I will never forgive that doctor for forcing mom to go to that appointment an hour away, knowing that there was nothing to be done to save her. Mom died at the end of August that year. Story 59 my mom had had several strokes resulting in very little short-term memory. For the 2 years between the time my dad passed away until she did, I had to explain to her on an almost monthly basis that no, dad was not living with someone else, that he had died. Story 60 I can't handle large groups of people for very long, even if they're family. My very extroverted mother couldn't understand why I went to my room after half an hour when we had everyone over for holidays and accused me of being lazy, antisocial. No, I don't love them any less. I just can't hang out with them all at once without feeling exhausted. Story 61 that just because me, her good church-going boy, was having casual with one of my friends, did not mean that she was in any way using me, or tricking me into the situation, and that I was genuinely happy how things were. Story 62 quantum physics. After my mom made my brother and I suffer through what the bleep do we know my favorite criticism of its pseudoscientific mysticism, the subsequent leap from cognitive therapy into large, hazy spiritual belief isn't as effectively executed. Suddenly people who were talking about subatomic particles are alluding to alternate universes and cosmic forces, all of which can be harnessed in the interest of making Ms. Matlin's character feel better about her thighs. More generally, it's been very difficult for her to understand how science works, and the fact that science has made many mistakes isn't a criticism of it, particularly given how we came to know they were mistakes and corrected them. Story 63 climate change. My pages and pages of science versus their motivated reasoning. I eventually got my father to realize what was happening. Still not sure he believes it, but he no longer calls it a liberal conspiracy around me. Story 64 that I honestly don't believe in their religion. Not that I just want to drink and party and have premarital, and that's it's easier to just not follow the rules. I just honestly don't think that the Bible is factual events that really happened. Story 65 I'm currently stuck trying to tell my parents that I'm in an interracial relationship. My brother is the worst of the family, but my parents are also decently racist. He said that BLM is not only as bad as the KKK, but worse than the KKK ever was. They've used their power over me to ruin a lot of things in my life, and I'm struggling to move out because they want cosign for it, and most places want 6 months and security deposit up front without a cosigner or renter's history. She and her parents are really unhappy about it, and I'm sick of scrambling to hide it. But it's difficult because if I tell them there's still a decent chance I could become homeless. Story 66 that in fact, it was not my fault my mother left my father. I was not the one cheating and beating my mom. I did not make my mom leave him. My narcissistic father does not agree. He has blamed me all my life, that guy. The hardest thing I've ever had to explain and am still trying to explain to my parents was my choice to stop practicing the faith that they raised me in. My parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is a religion that functions by using about 75% social control and 25% brainwashing. As a child, my parents and others I looked up to drilled into me and my peers that anyone who knew the true religion and willingly pushed it away would be destroyed when God began Armageddon. Many of the Bible story children's books and most of the literature in general feature graphic artists' depictions of molten lava and hot stones raining down on the wicked. Naturally, since my parents and all of my former loved ones, everyone I was ever close to growing up as a part of the religion truly believed this, they are tormented with the horrors of living alone in a paradise without me because I died in a fiery hailstorm, which I would have brought upon myself. It was also shocking for my parents when I told them I no longer wanted to practice, because I had never really been rebellious. I did everything they said, to the letter, committing to preaching 70 hours a month, quitting my job during college, dropping out of extracurricular activities, not applying to any out-of-state or on-campus residency schools until the day I had begun to realize that it didn't actually make sense to me and that I had been lied to. They assume I am just going through a phase and frequently attempted to pressure me into ending it and going back to the flock. They still tell me often that I need to get my life together. As far as they are concerned, although I'm working full-time as a teacher, in graduate school, and have lived alone, completely supporting myself in multiple places, and most importantly, living a life that makes me happy while trying not to bring harm to others, my life is worth nothing unless I live a lie. I've never even tried to make them aware of the fact that I don't believe in God at all, considering how hard it is for them to accept that I might want to change or consider any other religion.